Okay, so here I have my 24-inch 2-foot straight edge. I use it to straighten out the rails, and then what I will do is every 15 ties I put in a spike to hold the rail in place. I pinch the rail against the gauge, lining it up straight with my ties, and I will put a spike on either side to hold the rail in place. I put the spike on a bit of an angle to hold the rail. Spike it down. Now I have a bit of a curve here where my 3-point track gauges are, so I'll leave that in there to hold it, and then I'll come back here and line it up with the ties, and I can adjust it so that it flows nicely around the curve, because these spikes here are holding it in place. And I can adjust it like so, pushing the rail. Come on. Okay, so I put in a couple more spikes, so I've got it held in a couple places. Now I'll eyeball this just so that it looks, so that it flows nice. You can see how that flows nice, and then I've already marked some spots to put ties, so I know that that's where they'll go. If I can get a spike. And it looks pretty even. Let's put a spike to hold the rail in place, like so, and then I'll move along. Again, eyeball it, make sure it flows nicely and is pretty even in the ties. I put one on the outside of this rail because it's holding it in. When I do this one, I would do the inside to hold it out. And just continue on. Making sure that it flows and looks nice. Which on the camera, I think it looks pretty good. I'll zoom in a bit here so you can see. It's not 100% on the ties here because the switch is over. So I will do my next one. And then once I think I have it looking nice, I will spike the other side every 15 ties, and then come back and use my NMRA track gauge and gauge it. The 3 points are just to hold it. So let's continue. I'll do the other side of the other side. So when I first put in the rail, I do every 15 ties. You can see here on the other track, there, there, here. And then I will go back. Once I have the track in and it's straight, I will go back, put my track gauge back in, which I have in here. And I'll do one side of the rail, which is what I'm going to do with this one. I'll do one side of the rail, put all the spikes in, and then I'll come and do the other side of the rail, put all the spikes in, and I will show you that as we go along. Now, you can see this has got a bit of a, I'll zoom out here, so out, down, over here it's going crooked. So I'll go back and take these two spikes out and straighten it out. Now my ties are not 100% straight. This is a yard. I'm just looking for the track to flow nicely. Which I will probably have to take these ones out to get it to flow a little better. Which is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for it to flow nicely. All by eye. Hopefully you can see these, putting in these spikes. So I'll go back and take these ones out. Come out, get my other pliers. I find these ones work best. So I'll come back here. Pop these ones out. Put my gauge back on. Have a look at it. See how nicely it flows. Oh, that looks much better. There. There we go. Much better. Yes. Looks much better. I'll zoom in so you can have a look. That's this rail that I've spiked in, so it flows nicely up to the switch. So I'll go the length of the rail, and then I will show you how I do the other side. So go. Okay, so now I've switched ends. I've put in all my ties to hold the rail in place. Now I'm going to put a spike on either side here and then gauge it with the NMRA gauge. So one rail is going to be my rail that I gauge from. So that's the one I start with. Spikes in, nice and tight. Now, right now there's some play in there. I don't know if you can see it. I'll see if I can zoom in. Now, I'll put the other spike in and we'll see. Now, with the NMRA gauge, this is the point that you put against your rail that you're going to gauge from. This point has a lip where the track goes, and then just past that, if the track falls into there, it is out of gauge. So there's a little space between the little tab and the end here. I don't know if you can see that. So in between here, between the little tab and the outer edge here, is in gauge. If it doesn't fall in, it's too tight. If it falls in, it's out of gauge. So you can see it doesn't fall in. There's a little bit of play. So let's see if I can show you a little closer. So put this point up against and slide this one in. So it falls in, it's not hitting the little tab, and there's some movement in here. So it's in gauge. So if my wheels are in gauge through this side here, there should be no problem of it being too narrow or too wide. And my car is rolling nicely along here. This is what I like. And you can see I have the spikes on either side, and the rail is not going anywhere. That holds it tight, so I can come back and do the rest of them when I get all my track in. So that's how I do my straight track. I find that this 24-inch ruler, straight edge, works fantastic for this. You can get a lot done fairly quick. I have they make all kinds. I have a 10-inch one that I use and a 5-inch one. I also have a curve, which is 30 for doing micro engineering flex track, because once you curve that, it stays. And I have a 34. Those are the two radiuses that I use. So we'll just continue spiking here. So now what I'll do is I will go every 5 ties. That's the way I do it. I spike every 5 ties. I'll do one side. Push it down lightly till it touches. And if you've calculated right, when you get to one that holding already down the rail, should be 3, 4, 5th tie. Perfect. So now I know where every 5th tie is on this side. I will come on this side. So now that I have all these in place, I will just move the ruler down, quickly check with my gauge. Everything seems to be fine. If you do every 10 ties when you're first spiking it down, when you do your middle tie, you shouldn't have to worry about the gauge. It should be tight unless you push really hard and push your track out of gauge, which is why when I grab the spike and the pliers, I grab it so very little is hanging out. If you can see that. So I'm only pushing in a little bit of tie at a time, or spike at a time, sorry. And then tighten both. Have a look. It's a little bowed. Straighten it out. Have another look. Always checking. Check with the gauge. Still in gauge. Perfect. Now this is a yard, so it doesn't have to be 100% straight, but it does have to be in gauge. So if you're going to handle it, you definitely need one of these and a few basic tools.